You're listening to the Plain Talking UK podcast, the UK-based podcast written by a passenger to anyone. And here are your hosts, Carl Stebbing and Matt Smith.
Well, hello there, and welcome to episode number 80. 80, I can't believe we're at 80 already. It's really quite a strange show, it has to be said, because if you're watching on YouTube, it's a Thursday night. It is the 1st of October, 2015. And as you can probably see, everything's slightly different here in the Conservatory Studio. And there's one very good reason for that, and that's because I'm here on my own. Somebody decided to go on their annual holiday to what he likes to refer to as home, so it gives me great pleasure, by the magic of Skype, to welcome the legend that is Mr. Carlos Stebbings. Hello, Carl.
Hello, everyone. Hello, listeners.
This is strange. I don't like
Greetings
introducing the
from
show.
Malta.
I'm sorry, that's not happening again. It doesn't feel right at all. So how is it? How is it there in sunny Malta?
Well, it's been a bit rainy today.
What?
It's not been the best of days today. We've had a touch of rain, we've had a bit of thunder.
Right.
But we have had good weather up until now. So,
Right.
so
Okay.
it's good. It's good.
Yeah.
I'll forgive the weather.
To be fair,
today.
to be fair, you're in Malta. You'll forgive virtually anything. Let's be honest.
and let's be honest, Matt. I've had the best couple of few days.
Yes,
really,
yes. Why don't
with
you tell?
Sunday and today?
Why don't you tell the lovely, very patient listeners what on earth you have been up to this last couple of days?
So, Sunday, I went to the Malta International Air Show at Lucca Airport here and spent the hours of 10 in the morning till 6 in the evening interviewing very many pilots and going on board lots of lovely aircraft.
Wow.
And was looked after by the team there and had a lovely little media pass, which those of you who looked on Facebook could have seen the little badge that I had and stuff. And had a really good day. The weather was very hot, and it was brilliant. It was a brilliant, fantastic day. Tons of aircraft, loads of stuff to see, and to be honest, Matt, it was on a par with any of the big air shows we have here in the UK.
Really. So just from a what was the highlight really as far as you were concerned? What was the big the big winner, if you like?
Display aircraft wise, it had to be the Swiss display team. They were precision perfect,
Right.
like a Swiss watch, and they were fantastic. Static display aircraft. Obviously, the NATO had their AWACS there, the Boeing 707 AWACS, one with the big radar dome on top, which you've seen before.
Yeah, we saw that at Riyadh, didn't we, or something?
Yeah,
very
we did.
similar,
Yeah, the NATO had their one there, and I got to interview the flight commander and captain of that aircraft.
Okay, so we've got lots of fabulous interviews then to put out in the coming weeks. So you plenty of homework for me then, by the sound of it.
Oh, yeah, and special homework for you today. I went to the Malta Aviation Museum today, which is at Takali just at the sort of middle of the island kind of thing. They've got a huge aviation museum there, loads of static aircraft on display, including a couple of commercial aircraft, nose sections on display. And I've got a lovely little 2-hour-long interview for you to edit.
Oh, thanks very much for that. Yes. So who was it you were interviewing at the museum then?
Ray Polidano,
Right.
Who is he's like the chairman of the Heritage Society that run the museum.
Okay, fantastic.
Lovely chap, and like I said, he gave me 2 hours of his time this morning for a walk around the entire museum.
He probably couldn't believe his luck that there was somebody there that was actually nearly as mad about aeroplanes as he is, I should imagine.
No. He was brilliant, and to be bearing in mind Malta, for those of you who in the chat room or on listening to the show, Malta is a very small island in the Mediterranean, and for such a small island, the museum is huge. With a lot of aircraft, including in one of the hangars, they've got a DC-3 Dakota, the tail dragger, on display, which is not painted. It's all in lovely brushed aluminium.
Wow!
So no paint. It's very nice.
So if you're in Malta, then definitely a recommended visit.
Oh yes, definitely. Cool. That is one to visit, and it's so cheap. And I'll tell you another thing as well, Matt, that shocked me here. For those of you in the chat room listening live, you'll be able to comment on this. But at the air show, at the Malta Air Show, they produced a program very much like the ones you see at Riyadh and Farnborough, and their program cost me €3.
Oh my goodness me! What's that, about £1.90, something like that?
£2, £1.90, £2.
Wow, that is so ridiculously cheap.
and the drink and the food on site at the air shows, the air show was the same price as it is in the shops.
Really? Well, that is incredibly refreshing to do. So before we launch into the show properly, then you're in charge of the chat room there in Malta. So who have we got joining us this week? What's that? Hold that up again. Sorry, we were looking at the other camera. Sorry. What was that? What's that? Blue Label.
This episode of Plane Talking UK is sponsored by Blue Label.
Splendid.
Ale from Malta.
You're hoping for a load of freebies now when you get home, aren't you? So who have we got in the chat room, Carl?
So who have we got in the chat room? We've got this week Philip Davis has joined us, and Masha is in there as well. And we've got Matty Fab.
The legend that is.
And the legend that is. Jennifer Parkinson's joined us from Rome, where it's raining apparently.
Oh, no.
Rob Rusted.
Now, you were saying that's not very far away from you, didn't you? You were saying that weren't very far away?
Yeah, it's not very far away from us, which is worrying.
Rain on the way, then.
Means it's on its way here.
Did you say Rob was in the chat room as well?
Yeah, Rob's in the chat room as well. Matty Fabs just actually said, that the wasn't the Riyadh brochure £10? I think it was actually 12.
Really,
I think it was £12.
Wow.
Yeah, 12. Yeah, it was more. Gosh. It was more than a tenner, I think, for the program.
I must admit, we were a bit spoilt because obviously having media passes, we actually got one for free, didn't we? So it's difficult to say. But actually, I must just say, while Rob is there, huge thanks needs to go to him and his very patient wife, because while you've been away sunning themselves, he's been helping. Don't give me that look. It's all right. They can't see that picture, so you can do what you like at the moment. But he's had to work really, really hard to help me get this live link up between here and Malta up and running really, really smoothly. So he's been very patient with me, multiple Skype chats to test to make sure everything's been working, because thanks to your laptop that you left me, that horrible thing, I've had an absolute nightmare trying to get it. It's not a good laptop. It's if I had my way, it would now be a new feature of the summer house, which is the other end of the garden. But there we are. So yes, a special thanks to Rob Rusted and his very patient family who've been allowing me to borrow to get this working. So I think enough of the chit chat. Do you reckon we all get down to business? Yes, we should move on. Well, I'll let you lead the chair on this then, okay, as we get ready to go into the news.
So we're going to start this week's show then, as we do, with our rundown of the weekly news from around the world and the UK. So if you're ready over there in the UK, Matt?
Yes, pretty much ready as I'll ever be.
Let's go. So, kicking off this week's first news story then on the Travel Weekly site, and Southend Airport tops which poll for third year running. So, London Southend Airport has been named the best in Britain by a Which passenger survey. The airport topped the poll for a third year running with a customer score of 86%, a 1% increase on the score it achieved last year. The airport also achieved a 5-star rating in 4 of the 7 categories assessed: queues at bag drop, queues at security, passport control and baggage reclaim. Stansted and Luton tied at the bottom of the list with a 40% customer score. The results were compiled following a survey completed by 11,266 members of which was done in the summer of this year. These polled were asked about their experiences of flying from a airport in the UK in the past year, and were quizzed on the queues at check-in and bag drop and airport security, and also the queues at baggage reclaim, and also on seating, food outlets and passport control. Glyn Jones, Chief Executive of Stobart Aviation, who owns London Southend, said to be named the best airport in Britain for the third year running is wonderful news, and once again a testament to all the hard work that the team here at London Southend has put in. So that's interesting, Matt, because that's obviously Southend is not the biggest airport in the UK.
No, far from it.
But obviously it's come out top of the league here for the customer service.
Yeah. It's one I've yet to actually experience. I've not actually been to I nearly said Malta. Then I don't mean Malta. It's not actually one I've been to yet to see what it's like. But
because obviously for those of you who don't know, Southend Airport's owned and operated by a haulage operator, Eddie Stobart, here in the UK.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a different one to really comment on, as I say. I mean, but they're obviously getting something right. I mean, Eddie Stobart themselves are quite famous for their customer service when it comes to sort of transport and lorries and stuff. And I guess they're applying those same rules to the aviation.
I wonder where Norwich came.
I daren't look. Is it even on the list?
I don't know.
Oh dear. Anyway, moving on to the next story. Whilst the line is still working, I'm sort of keen to sort of whiz through this while we've still got Malta at the other end. The next story is on the Huffington Post. This is the UK edition, and it's sort of leading on from a story that we covered last week. And Ryanair is not violating an EU directive to help asylum seekers. This has sort of slipped under the radar a bit as far as I'm concerned, but claims that budget airline Ryanair will launch a campaign to help asylum seekers reach their destination country have been debunked as an online hoax. Ryanair would reportedly see the carrier risk a €3,000 fine for each person carried with a willful contravention of the EU Council directive introduced in 2001 to combat illegal immigration. In a press release, RyanFair.org Chief Marketing Officer Kenny Jacobs was quoted as saying, "We are facing the biggest humanitarian emergency of our era, confirming our mission made air travel accessible to the masses. We've decided to open to refugees our routes from Greece and East Europe, violating a rule that simply dumps government responsibilities on the carriers. We will proudly cover all the costs of this violation. We want to give our small contribution to healing the suffering for thousands of refugees who were forced to abandon their homes and flee their lives. We are confident that other carriers will join us in this campaign and force the EU to come together and agree to a plan to tackle the refugee crisis." The news was greeted with positivity on Twitter, and indeed it would be a noble and expensive move by the airline if any of it were true. Ryanair has denied it will be operating Ryanair desks from the 12th of October. What's more, a spokesman tells the Huffington Post UK the comments attributed to Kenny Jacobs are entirely fictitious and there is no truth in these claims whatsoever. Now, the only reason I've covered this story actually is, as I say, because it's been doing the rounds, if you like, on YouTube and social media in general, and it's one of those sort of it's a bizarre story. And the thing is, and this is half of it, is it's so convincing because they're using the right names, they've got the right images, the logo and everything was. I mean, whoever built this particular hoax had spent so much time in actually getting it to look genuine. I mean, it's a major thing, and one of the Twitter people underneath here has actually said that Ryanair are no strangers to PR stunts, but this is pretty big. So one can't help but feel maybe they're trying to sort of take the shine off this CAA investigation in them with regard to their not adhering to the rules when it comes to what was it? It's the directive to do with fares, isn't it? Where or claimbacks if your flight is delayed.
Claims, flight claims for delays and stuff.
So it's a bizarre story, more of a fun story, I think, rather than anything else. But it was, we can't always be horrible to Ryanair.
In the chat room, Matty Fabs has come up. He said that it must be easier for quieter airports to win here awards, as the customer service staff to customer ratio will be much greater than Manchester or Heathrow, etc. Which is very true.
That is a very, very good point. I hadn't thought of it like that. Yeah. Yeah, in which case it really ought to suggest that Norwich is doing incredibly well, but I fear that may not be the case.
Actually, we should ask, really, I mean, what Jenny Parkinson's in here. She's obviously in Rome.
Yes.
Wonder what the customer service is like at Campino Airport in Rome. She obviously flies in there.
Splendid. We'll wait for a response from that, hopefully. Yeah. But so anyway, moving on
to our next story.
Yep.
And this one is on the Telegraph travel site, this one, and the headline: are £99 flights to Canada the start of a budget transatlantic revolution?
Oh, I do hope so.
So as WOW Air launches £99 transatlantic routes to Montreal and Toronto, its CEO claims the airline is spearheading a revolution in low-cost long-haul flights. Across Europe, there are some 22 budget airlines, almost exclusively operating within the confines of the continent, save a handful that fly east towards Asia or south towards Africa. Only 2 fly west across the Atlantic to America, but this looks set to change as the aviation industry tentatively embarks on a low-cost, long-haul revolution that has seen customers offered flights to US cities for less than £150. Which is hundreds of pounds cheaper than one would normally expect to pay for a transatlantic flight. As it stands, a small number of airlines are spearheading the move. Norwegian, Europe's third largest low-cost carrier, was one of the first two to begin expansion onto the markets across the pond. Last year, introducing routes to New York, Los Angeles and Fort Lauderdale. Last week, it announced further routes from Cork to Boston and New York next year. Budget German airline Eurowings will fly to Fort Lauderdale. Another player at the forefront of the transition is Iceland's WOW Air, a budget airline founded in 2011, but already making waves with headline-grabbing £99 fares to Boston and Washington.
Wow.
Today it announces, or this week it announced tickets on sale from 8 p.m. at the start of this week to 2 new transatlantic routes to the Canadian cities of Montreal and Toronto. All its transatlantic routes fly via the Icelandic capital of Reykjavik. That'd be quite a nice stopover.
Yeah.
The 4 times a week flights will operate from May next year.
Wow.
The conventional wisdom is that the low-cost long-haul doesn't work, says the airline's founder and CEO, Skul Morgensen. But we think it's never been applied properly, and we think the timing is now perfect. Today's traveller in Europe or the US is very well educated when it comes to the budget model, and it's not surprising to them to see that they are charged for their bag or for their food on board. And it just says here that they're applying what's been happening for 15 years to the long-haul market. And Morgensen founded the airline, WOW, after seeing the market share that operators such as Ryanair and EasyJet were enjoying and recognising the gap in the market in Iceland. And the story goes on. Just looking up on here at WOW Air, and they were founded, as he said, in November 2011.
Yeah.
They've got 5 aircraft in their fleet, which are all Airbus, A320s and A321s.
Yeah.
And just looking through some of their they've got 20 destinations they fly to.
Right.
And their headquarters are in Reykjavik in Iceland.
Oh, cool. That's nice. It's just a really nice. I mean, it's magical if they really are able to get to the situation. Where, I mean, 99 quid to go to Canada. I mean, I've got family in Canada. I'd give anything to be able to go and see them, and I've not done it purely and simply because of the costs involved. But I mean, I almost don't care if I end up on a sort of Ryanair type sort of aircraft that with really cramped seating and stuff, if it means I can fly over there for 99 quid. That's crazy.
I know. Matty Fabs has said in the chat room, actually, if these transatlantic flights were viable, one or more of the big players would have cashed in by now.
Yeah, I guess so. But then I suppose they've only got to do a little bit. I mean, you know full well that for example, Ryanair aren't filling a route that I use on a regular basis, obviously, is where we're flying from Stansted to Ireland, obviously, because that's where Auntie lives. And if you book it 3-4 months in advance, you can get it for like sort of 19 quid each way or something stupid. You can get it really, really cheap. But, I doubt we're the only ones. I doubt that everybody who's on that plane is paying that cheap rate. I mean, a lot of them are paying much, much more than that. Because they need to get over there sort of ASAP. So maybe that's what the likes of WoW Air and that are perhaps gambling on, is the fact that they can get some higher price seats as time goes on. Maybe
I tell you, it'd be awesome to see. If something like this came online and offered flights that cheap to get to America and places like Canada and that, because I bet they'd fill a plane.
Oh, I don't think they'd have any other. That's without doubt, especially at night. I mean, the first few flights without doubt is 99 quid. It'd just be absolutely amazing. But yes, anyway, moving on to the next story. Now, this is one I think that Norwich Airport could really do with learning a lesson from, and it's from the BBC News website, bbc.co.uk, and the headline is Newquay Airport scraps its £5 development fee, which is, I think, a fabulous headline. A controversial airport development fee is set to be scrapped, because I think Norwich is £10. Have I guessed that correctly?
That is, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So the £5 fee paid by people departing from Newquay Airport has prompted anger from passengers and airlines. Adam Paintner from Cornwall Council, which owns and subsidises the airport, confirmed the authority was looking to drop the charge. Low-cost airline Ryanair previously cited the fee as a reason for pulling its flights out of Newquay. Mr. Painter, a Liberal Democrat, said that the airport development fee clearly was something that was not wholly popular with a lot of operators and lots of the public. The fee was introduced in October 2006 to raise funds to invest in the former military airbase. Council talks regarding the matter have so far been held in private, with a decision to be made by the full council on a date yet to be decided. Malcolm Bell, head of Visit Cornwall, said scrapping the disliked fee would be good for tourism. Conservative councillor Fiona Ferguson said that the airport would have to gain additional flights as a result of scrapping the fee to make it worthwhile. A spokesman for Ryanair said that it was always interested in new routes depending on demand, aircraft capacity and a viable airport deal. The airport currently serves around 220,000 passengers a year and receives an annual subsidy from Cornwall Council of around about £2.3 million. Now, I know my best friend, myself and Geordie, we used to go to Cornwall a lot, especially Newquay, because it was a really nice place to go. And we were actually, last time we went, we were actually looking into flying. And the only reason we didn't is because of it was so expensive, because Ryanair had just pulled their route out of there, so they weren't doing it anymore. And I really think Norwich could learn a few lessons from this. Really, I think that it would be a much busier airport if they did away with this ridiculous £10 fee. Yeah,
which for the fee you really get that much choice.
No, well, and they don't change. It hasn't. I mean, Norwich's one has been in for a good sort of 5 years at least, hasn't it? Now, I mean, it's been there a long time.
We should definitely try and get someone from Norwich Airport on the show. I think would be good.
Yeah, we'll look into that as soon as you come home. I think really, or as soon as I come home as well, because obviously I'm away. But I think lessons can be learnt from that. And watch this space. I really want Newquay Airport now to absolutely thrive and go nuts as a result of making this decision.
For all the surfers.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, even for I look ridiculous on a surfboard, but it is a fascinating sport to watch. It really is. I mean, Fistral Beach is an amazing place. If you've never been, you have to go. It is truly quite lovely. Anyway, on to the next story.
Oh, just. Going back to one of the stories we had on previously, Jennifer Parkinson's just said that Fiumicino Airport is the big international airport in Rome and has some problems, or has had some problems this year following a fire. But it's all okay again, and the customer service there is good.
Excellent. Oh, that's good.
So thanks for that, Jenny.
Yeah, absolutely. This is what I love about a live show. I love it. You get immediate feedback.
I know, it's great.
Absolutely.
So the next story is on the Telegraph site. And the headline, which is one of the ones I've seen pop up on the social media sites this week, mystery jet strange flight path leaves Scottish plane spotters baffled. So planes crisscrossed the skies over Scotland for hours on Tuesday without landing. Plane spotters in Scotland have been left baffled by the bizarre flight path of a mystery aircraft. The Bombardier Global Express jet was tracked flying all over the southern half of Scotland on Tuesday afternoon, spending hours crisscrossing the skies without landing, according to the Herald. The mystery deepened when the spokesman for Air Traffic Control Service, NATS, said the plane was definitely not a commercial aircraft and suggested it was probably a military jet, while the Ministry of Defence said it did not belong to the British military. The US Air Force, which has servicing and refueling contracts with Prestwick Airport, also used the Canadian-made planes, but Prestwick Airport said the jet had not been in touch on Tuesday. Commenting on FlightRadar24.com, plane spotters suggested the jet could be a spy plane and noted that the plane's flight path was very strange. Others said that it could have been a jet burning off fuel before it left Scottish airspace at around 6:35 p.m. Now I saw this particular story on social media.
If they haven't seen it already, I'm just going to pop the map up onto. You can have a look now. It's not the biggest picture, so I'm sorry about that. But if you look, there's a sort of red line essentially where the its route has been mapped, and it's a really strange route. Something isn't right there, is it? I mean, it's sort of going right way down, sort of well into England, and then sort of turning back on itself. And as I say, it's just very strange, isn't it? Very strange flight path.
Because there was a lot of talk on social media sites that this probably was a covert military jet doing some sort of special
something dodgy.
Thing.
Yes,
something dodgy, but. Perhaps someone else might know something about that in the chat room. I expect Matty Fab will. He knows everything there is to know about aircraft.
Oh, I should imagine so. Actually, just going back to the previous story, Lai rusted because Rob and Lai are watching, as you know. We were talking about the airport fees, and Lai was just saying, funny you say that. My mum was saying that this morning about the £10 fee as she's flown to Germany today. She couldn't believe it, as if paying for the ticket wasn't enough. Because it's not exactly like it's cheap to fly from Norwich either, is it? I mean, you are making a big financial decision to actually do that. But as I say, I mean, I'd love to fly from Norwich, but because of this fee, a lot of people don't do routes out of there. But yes, anyway, slightly off topic, I know.
No, carry on.
Okay, right, on to the next story then, and this is on Flight Global. And the headline is Air New Zealand A320 in close encounter with UAV. Now, these stories are appearing more and more each time. They're just becoming more and more popular like this. And New Zealand Civil Aviation Authority is investigating a near miss with an Air New Zealand A320 aircraft and an unmanned aerial vehicle. The incident occurred around 17:45 on the 25th of September as the A320 was climbing out of Christchurch whilst operating a flight to Auckland. The authority said that the aircraft passed through 6,000 feet around the Kaopol area in controlled airspace. A sizable remotely piloted aircraft system passed close to it. We are very concerned that an RPAS pilot appears to have allowed their aircraft to fly in such close proximity to a passenger aircraft, says CAA Director Graham Harris. The RPAS should not have been anywhere near the jet. It simply shouldn't have been in that airspace. New Zealand has implemented civil aviation rules relating to the use of UAVs in 2014, specifying limitations on where they can be operated and under what conditions. The country is also helping to shape international standards for UAVs through the ICAO. What's the ICAO?
ICAO. The international, oh blimey, international. Hold on, I'm going to quickly Google that.
Right, if not, I'm sure someone in the chat room will soon put that right for you.
It's ICAO. It's rules of something to do with the rules of the air.
Right.
It is the International Civil Aviation Organisation.
Ah, get you.
ICAO. Yeah.
Well, as I say, it's not the last time that UAVs are going to be mentioned, I think, when it comes to that. I mean, as I say, we've said before.
But they have their place.
They do. They're great bits of kit. I mean, one day I shall own one, and I can't wait. But, the people who are flying them need to be a little bit more conscientious about other aviation traffic, really.
Actually, just moving off topic briefly, Matt, just looking on a website that you can look at online. It's lightningmaps.org, www.lightningmaps.org.
Yeah.
And there is rather a nice thunderstorm brewing just off the coast of Malta here, where I am at the moment.
Oh, is there? Happy days.
Yes, there is. And Jenny, where she is in Rome, there's quite a nice storm just off the coast of Naples. Latina in Rome.
You're upset now.
Yeah, it's a great little site. This is for those of you who like things like Flight Radar 24. This is kind of like Flight Radar 24, but you can track storm cells, which is really
how
good.
Cool is that? That is very, very cool. Right, on to the next story then, Carl.
On to the next story then, and this story is on the Yahoo UK news site. And the headline, US-Cuban aviation deal possible this year, official says. So Havana and routers in Cuba and the United States advanced towards restoring scheduled airline service during 2 days of talks that concluded in Havana on Tuesday, with the potential to reach a deal this year, a US official said. One more meeting might be enough to finalise an arrangement. They can't be sure, said the US official, who was familiar with talks and spoke on the condition of anonymity. The two sides plan to meet again, possibly before the end of this year, and most likely in Washington, the official told Reuters. Scheduled commercial airline service has been suspended for decades as a result of Cold War animosity. Sorry, it's a beer. But both sides quickly made resumption a priority upon detente last December. Charter flights have long connected the United States and Cuba. Then Washington initiated new rules in January that more easily permit US airlines to fly to Cuba. However, US and Cuban officials first need to negotiate an arrangement before restarting its scheduled service, which its customers could book travel directly with airlines. After that informal deal is reached, the two sides have to agree to work on updating a 1953 civil aviation agreement that is still valid but obsolete. Officials from 6 US government agencies met with counterparts from the Cuban Foreign Ministry and the Cuban Institute of Civil Aviation on Monday and Tuesday, the officials said. Safety and security cooperation was well advanced, largely because of charter flights already meeting US Federal Aviation Administration and Transportation Safety Administration standards, the official says. Should have used the abbreviations there, TSA and FAA.
Where's the fun in that?
I know. God, you give me a long story here. The US
your punishment for being on holiday
Obama
in Malta
has relaxed those restrictions, leading to a boom in US citizen travel to Cuba, which is up more than 60% this year, with 106,607 Americans arriving as of September the 20th. The market would grow further if the US Congress were to lift either the tourism ban or the embargo. We don't have a deadline, and we're eager. Our carriers are eager, the US official said, about reaching a deal. Both sides see it as a positive in itself, but positive also as a signal in the progress of broader relationships with Cuba. So major US airlines, including JetBlue Airways, American Airlines Group, and Delta and United, have all expressed interest in scheduled services to Cuba. Now, I didn't actually realise that there wasn't flights going from the US to Cuba, but I do now.
Well, indeed, yeah. I mean, I suppose if Well, I didn't realise they'd been out. Been out since the Cold War. I mean, it almost suggests that in modern day travel, there hasn't actually been any flights going from the US to Cuba at all. So what was it? The Cold War was in the 60s, wasn't it?
Yes.
Wow, long old time. It's a nice part of the world, really. It's a shame that they haven't been doing. Anyway, on to the next story, and this is on the travel website Telegraph Travel, and the headline is "The End of Shrinking Airline Seats. Minimum Seat Size Petition Launched in the US." And this is a story very much after my own heart. It is one of the great bugbears of modern air travel: the amount of space available to passengers as they fly from airport A to destination B, and with airlines ever so keen to squeeze more paying passengers onto their aircraft, the size of the seats that we squash ourselves into for our trips through the sky has become an increasingly contentious topic. So much so that the US pressure group has filed a petition demanding legislation that could set legal limits on how small and narrow carriers are allowed to make their seating. Flyers' Rights filed its official demand to the America's Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA, on the 26th of August. A petition for rulemaking limitation of seat size reductions lays out a list of requirements which, although they would initially come into force in the US, would, if adopted, have considerable implications for the rest of the airline industry. Flyers' Rights does not specify what it considers a fair size for a plane seat, but it does ask for a regulation mandating minimum seat width and seat pitch for commercial airlines. Seat pitch, that's the space between your seat and the same point on the chair in front of you, has arguably become a more controversial matter than seat width in recent years, with ever slimmer gaps between rows sparking arguments about available legroom and whether it's rude to recline your seat when it eats into the personal space of the passenger behind. The issue has even caused the rise to prominence of the knee defender, a device which can be clipped to the rear of the seat in front, preventing the occupant from leaning it back. Many airlines have now banned the use of said product after a raft of confrontations which put flights at risk. Last September, United Airlines service from Newark in New Jersey to the Colorado capital Denver had to make an emergency landing in Chicago following a dispute between two passengers over a discreet deployment of said gadget. Based in Saratoga, in Florida, Flyers' Rights, which claims to be the largest non-profit airline consumer organisation representing airline passengers with 60,000 members and supporters, hopes that its petition will help prevent future such disagreements by setting clear rules in the shape and scope of airline seating. The petition points out that while specific rules are in place on aviation requirements such as seatbelts and headrests, so far the only limitation placed on airlines by the FAA regarding seat space is limiting the number of seats in an aircraft based on the number and size of emergency exits. Now that is officially fascinating. I didn't realise. I kind of assumed that there was such. I kind of assumed there was, I thought that was already there, but apparently not.
I'll tell you what. You look at the picture what you've got in the graphic on here, Matt, on this particular story.
Yeah.
And the gap in between those seats on that particular, I don't know what airline that is, but it's obviously a long haul one because of the IFE system.
Hang on, I'll bring that up. I'll put that up now. 1 sec. There you go.
That is quite a good gap in between those seats. I mean, there is quite a considerable gap in between each of those seats, and they're obviously economy seats.
Yeah.
So I mean, there is a minimum that they have to be, space wise. I think there is a minimum, and you've got to have, especially on long haul aircraft, even in economy. You can't have people shoehorned in rows, seat rows, and that, because then you just get bad feedback then from passengers, even those who are only in economy.
Exactly. I mean, one of the least. I mean, Ryanair, and I keep using it as an example, and I do feel really bad sometimes. But Ryanair do. It is a bit of an issue, but again, for the price that you pay,
they're not a long haul. I mean,
no, they're not.
The longest flights I think Ryanair does is, I think it's 4 hours, four and a bit hours. I think one of their longest flights is.
Gosh, so not that long, really. Actually, to be fair, no. I don't know. It's all good. But then as I was saying, I think we covered it last week. EasyJet, who I flew to Sharm El Sheikh with, budget airline again, and it's the most legroom on their newer craft, which is, you'll be able to tell me which craft is that?
Well, the Airbus, the 320s.
Is it 320? Was absolutely stunning. I mean, I've never had so much legroom. It was really. Well,
we had, obviously we flew out here with EasyJet, and
because you had the older plane, you were saying, didn't you?
Yeah, we had the speedy boarding thing, and we were in row 4 flying out here on row 4 DEF, Delta Echo and Foxtrot seats we had flying out, and there was plenty of legroom, and I do have a confession to make.
Oh, go on. Yes.
What do you think I'd done when we landed at Lucca here in Malta?
Did you go and attack the pilot?
Yeah.
Did you? Yes, the poor man.
I kind of spent sort of 10 minutes chatting in the on the flight deck with the captain of the aircraft.
Did you go in Tazcam blazing, or was it just an informal chat?
No. I had an informal chat. No, I had an informal chat with the pilot, who, funnily enough, the captain of the aircraft who that brought us out. He was actually more interested in the ins and outs of podcasting,
really,
than aviation and flying.
Well, who'd have thought that? Who'd have thought that?
So just to let you guys and girls in the chat room who are watching the show live, you can probably see behind me outside the black sky, but there is lightning. There is quite a decent storm outside at the moment.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Is that the one come from Rome
in front of me?
The one there's one's come over from Rome, yes.
No, Jenny. I think Jenny's still got her storm in Rome. I'm just looking out. Yeah. Oh yes, there is quite a good storm. Just moving just off the coast of Rome at the moment. But for those of you who have clicked on the link on the YouTube chat room feed to the lightning maps, if you look at that now, you'll see that the entire island of Malta is covered by a storm cell.
Oh dear, not good news.
So if I disappear all of a sudden,
it disappears. Yeah,
you'll know why.
Yeah, yeah. The line's gone down. The line's gone dead. It's all gone horribly wrong.
So moving on to our next story.
Indeed, yes.
So the next story is on Flight Global's site, and the headline is Luxair Q400 comes to rest on fuselage after aborting a takeoff.
Oh no.
Ooh. So one of Luxair's Bombardier Q400 turboprops has come to rest on its lower fuselage after aborting a takeoff from Saarbrücken. Flight LG 9562 had been bound for Luxembourg. Luxair says the aircraft aborted its departure at around 10 a.m. and none of the 16 passengers and 4 crew members was injured, it adds. Images from the scene show an aircraft resting on its underside with no immediate indication as to whether the main landing gear is retracted or detached. The nose gear doors appear to be open, and Saarbrücken's airport operator states the aircraft blocked its single runway designated 0927, which is funnily enough the same designation as our runway at Seething, where I learned to fly, and that the number of flights have been cancelled as a result. NOTAMs, or Notice to Airmen, for Saarbrücken state that the airport was closed. Flight Global's fleet's analyzer tool shows that the Q400 involved, Lima X-Ray Lima Golf Hotel, is a 3-year-old airframe, and Luxair says the circumstances surrounding the accident are being investigated. Dear. The aircraft, I mean the Q400, I'm pretty sure that is a short range. Yes, it is. It's the Bombardier -8
right.
Q series, and this is an aircraft that's used by Flybe here in the UK.
Yeah.
It's a twin prop aircraft, which you would have seen before in the air, I expect, Matt. It's used by Qantas Link as well as Horizon Air, Jazz Air, and the Q400, which is actually the newest model of this aircraft, and it's powered by. Just going to look at the engines here. What's powering the Q400? Here we go. So the Q400 is powered by Pratt & Whitney 120A or PW121 engines. And if you want to buy one of these, it'll cost you £27 million.
Oh, so cheap at half the price then.
Yeah. But this is quite a popular regional jet though, Matt. This particular Q400, the Dash 8, is a very, very popular regional jet. There's been quite a few of these built. There's been over 1,000 of these built.
Wow.
As of June this year, there was 1,164 been produced.
Wow.
So a popular jet. So hopefully they'll get to the cause of why the undercarriage may not have been lowered on this occasion.
So that is where we bring the commercial aviation section to a close. We're just going to have a very quick. You're going to presumably refuel your can.
Yes.
Yeah. and I'm going to go and put the kettle on. So we will be back with part 2, which is the.
Someone's just joined us in the chat room.
Have they? Who's that?
Captain Jeff.
Captain Jeff has joined us in the chat room. This is a bit scary.
I kid you not, Captain Jeff is in the chat room.
I'm a bit frightened. I'm not going to lie. Yeah, I'm not putting you realise I'm not putting my camera on now ever for the rest of the show. But anyway, well, while you go away and chat to Captain Jeff, we're just going to go and have a very quick coffee break. If you are watching on YouTube, we will be back chatting to you before we start section 2, which of course is the military section. We'll be doing that right after these messages.
Aviation media has long been the domain of the newspapers and magazines. Well, not anymore. I'm Steve Vischer.
And I'm Grant McCarran, and we're bringing aviation right into your radio.
Yes, we're making aviation cool and interesting for everyone.
Hang on, aviation's always been cool. Check this out. How cool is this?
Grant, turn that down. Here at Plane Crazy Down Under, we've got pilots, engineers, air traffic controllers, industry leaders, even politicians dropping by to talk to us about the amazing world of aviation right here in Australia and occasionally in New Zealand as well.
Wow, that's cooler than I thought, mate.
Find us at planecrazydownunder.com, on iTunes, or lurking about on other people's podcasts just like this one.
We've got crazy accents and lots of great aviation content.
And we promise not to talk about the cricket.
No, never. Not the cricket. Quack, 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 quack. What is cricket anyhow?
Something we win a lot.
Find this and other great shows at the Aviation Media Network.
thevoicesinyourhead.com.
And we're back after that short break, and we have got some military news, haven't we, Matt?
We have indeed, yes. Only 5 stories this week.
Yeah. And also we've got aircraft circling the island where I am now because they can't land.
Yes, you just explain to everyone what we were talking about in the chat room at the break there.
Yeah, just so currently at the moment in Malta where I am, we've got quite a large storm cell. Those of you in the chat room would have already gone onto the website to see the storm cell that's currently over the island. And those of you who can also click on Flight Radar 24 will see that there is a Jet 2 737-300 series from Newcastle in the UK, which is flying here, which has currently been for the last 10-15 minutes circling round and round and round and round in quite a nice actual perfect circle over just to the north of the island at 12,950 feet.
Wow. Oh dear. So, I mean, how long is the storm like to stay for then?
Well, at the moment there's currently not a lot of wind here, so there's a good possibility that this will keep here for a little while. So,
okay. Gosh,
obviously, if Jeff was here, with his mad dog, he'd fly through the storm.
Right, of course,
land.
Without question.
So, yeah.
Okay, all right then. So it is time to do the military section. So if you are ready, Mr. Carlos.
I am ready.
Excellent. Okay then, let's go. And nothing's happening. That's always helpful.
So first news story then, kicking off this week, it's on the Telegraph website. And the headline is, Russia kills US-backed Syrian rebels in second day of airstrikes as Iran prepares for ground offensive. So the Russian jets bomb rebel. Let me restart that again. Russian jets bomb rebel positions in Syria, including rural areas near the northwestern town of Jij-e-Shenruha, a day after launching airstrikes and following developments here. There's a short story that one, Matt. You've got me there, but there's actually a video on this site that can show, obviously, the Russian jets bombing here. I don't know what particular jets these are. I'd imagine they're a Russian bomber of some description, I'd imagine, or Russian fighters, MiGs or something along the lines, or something like that. But on the actual site here, you'll be able to see the video of that. But it's terrible that obviously these things, why these battles and wars have to go on around the world is. It's a terrible shame.
It is. It's really. It's just sort of one of those things. I suppose it has to be. Why the Russians have suddenly decided that they think it's okay to get involved, I really don't know. It's one of those tricky things, really, isn't it?
So moving on to our next story.
Yes, and unfortunately, my browser has just crashed, so I can't.
That's
do
fine.
The next
story. I'll take this one then.
Yeah. Okay. It's all.
So,
you leave the studio and it all goes horribly wrong from this end. Never mind. Yes. So if you wouldn't mind taking the second story, I would be eternally grateful.
Yes. Let me just take a blimey flash of lightning just then. Oh wow. So this story is on the IndianExpress.com site. The headline: From the lab, next generation monitors to help fighter pilots cut out distractions. We've got one here. It's called a Storm. So using optics, material sciences, electronics and precise designing to develop an advanced heads-up display for aircraft. So the research, which is using optics and materials, which has been developed for using the precision heads-up display for aircraft. So consider this, which is a pilot in a fighter aircraft flying at 2,000 kilometers an hour. All the controls inside the cockpit are placed either beside the pilot's seat or at positions for which he needs to divert his attention to from his forward-looking position. A pilot needs to change his line of vision repeatedly to keep track of information like airspeed, heading, scale, climb, descent rate, angle of attack. For commercial airlines, which mostly operate on an autopilot mode, this is not a big issue. But for fighter aircraft, taking aim at a target, half a second of distraction can make a big difference. So pilots flying fighter aircraft all over the world now depend on an instrument called head-up display, or HUD. So they overcome the problem using the HUD, or the head-up display. The heads-up display is essentially a display box that relays information from all the instruments installed in the cockpit right in front of the pilot's eyes. The aim is to ensure that the pilot need never not divert his attention to access any information. So when the pilot is looking out of the cockpit, he has what is called an infinity vision. When he looks back inside, he has to change his focus even if the object is at the same line of vision. Even this causes distraction, which it does. I must admit, I have tried this myself on an aircraft at Riyadh. So with a head-up display, even while looking outside the cockpit, a pilot has a complete access to information inside the plane. Imagine reading a message on your phone without taking your eyes away from the road. Wow, that'd be good. This may not be possible, but you can read a board at the back of a bus in front of you, which is true, you can. So a head-up display achieves something similar throughout very sophisticated instrumentation involving a combination of optics, materials and sciences, electronics and precise designing. The head-up display is a tapered structure in a metal encasing around 1.5 feet in length and 0.5 feet or 0.5 feet width and 0.9 feet in height at the front. It is fixed at the cockpit in the front of the windshield at around 400 millimeters from the pilot. It weighs up to 22 kilograms initially, but now with improvisations the weight has been reduced to around 12 kilograms. HUDs are not new, and the first ones were developed almost 3 decades ago in India. They've been building HUDs since the late 1990s. The head-up displays were in process of testing weight in a testing weight of half the early ones. So the earlier ones obviously weighed a lot more than the newer ones. So a laboratory has been designing these new head-up displays for fighter combat aircraft to produce more of a display for the fighter pilots to see in front of them, to enable them to fly the aircraft without actually have to take their eyes off the controls in front of them, which I think is a fantastic thing to have. I mean, for those of you who have seen the flight deck of the Boeing 787 Dreamliner and the new Airbus A350, they have head-up displays for the pilots in there, and also the A400M, which we were lucky enough to go on to at Riyadh this year. The A400Ms also have the head-up display for the pilots, and I had the chance, luckily, me and pilot Pip had the chance to go on board the A400M at Riyadh and see these actual head-up displays in use. It was fantastic, absolutely fantastic to see these to see what the pilots see.
Yeah, I bet.
And it quite rightly it does. It gives you all information you could possibly need on a panel in front of your eyes.
Yeah, I should just apologise to everybody who's listening there. You are still here, but it would appear the storm is getting the better of your connection at the moment. So we can still hear you, but the video side of things has gone a little bit awry, sadly. But yeah, we can still hear you nevertheless. So we got the gist of that story. So while Carlos closes any YouTube apps that he's got open to try and free up bandwidth on his connection as the connections drop a bit, I will carry on with the next story, and that is on combataircraft.com, and the headline is Boeing receives order from India for 22 Apache and 15 Chinook helicopters. This is a story based in Philadelphia. 29th of September was when it was published, and the India Ministry of Defence has finalised its order with Boeing for production, training and support of Apache and Chinook helicopters that will greatly enhance India's capabilities across a range of military and humanitarian missions. India will receive 22 AH-64E Apache attack helicopters and 15 CH-47F Chinook heavy lift helicopters. Both are the newest models of those aircraft. This is a milestone in Boeing's expanding commitment to India, says Mr. Kumar, president of Boeing India. This acquisition enhances the Indian Air Force's capabilities and offers us an opportunity to further accelerate Make in India. Large sections of the Chinook fuselage are already manufactured in India, and discussions are ongoing with our Indian partners to make Apache parts. The Apache is the world's leading multi-role attack helicopter. The AH-64E Apache, the most modern variant, also flown by the US Army, features enhanced performance, joint digital capability, improved survivability and cognitive decision aiding. The CH-47F Chinook is an advanced multi-mission helicopter operated by the US Army and 18 other defence forces. The Chinook has proven its ability to operate in the range of conditions that typify the Indian subcontinent, including delivering heavy payloads to high altitudes. These new aircraft will provide world-class capabilities facilities to meet the Indian Air Force's missions today, tomorrow, and well into the future, said David Coppersmith, Vice President and General Manager, Boeing Vertical Lift Division. This agreement represents another major step forward in our long and successful partnership with India. India is the 14th nation to select the Apache and the 19th nation to select the Chinook. The Apache and Chinook represent the best of high-performing technologies that will also modernise India's defence capabilities, says Dennis Swanson, Vice President, Defence, Air, Space and Security in India. We look forward to delivering the newest Apache and Chinooks to our customers and remain focused on delivering on its commitments to the Indian Air Force and India's Ministry of Defence.
Can I just say, Matt, that we have another podcasting legend in the chat room.
Oh, do we?
And it gives me great pleasure to welcome into the chat room Dr. Steph.
Oh, wow. Oh, cool. Oh, they're all joining us at the moment then, aren't they?
Yeah. Dr. Steph's in there now. So hello to you, Dr. Steph. Thank you for joining us as well.
Absolutely. No, it's all very good. Okay.
There's lots of people in the chat room. It's very good.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I'll leave you to chat to them
then.
Can
you still hear me, Matt?
Yes, I can just about hear you. As I say, unfortunately, things are not going according to plan. The link is starting to break up, but we should just explain in Malta, as if you were listening earlier, you will know there's been a massive rainstorm that's just hit where Carlos is, and so we've gone from having fabulous video to things going a little bit awry. So in the meantime, I will read the next story while we hope that link comes back up, and the next one is Flight Global, and the headline is Scan Eagle to be delivered to Cameroon, Kenya and Pakistan. In-Situ has received 3 export contracts for its Scan Eagle unmanned air vehicle that will see it deliver the system to Cameroon, Kenya and Pakistan. Under the USA's Foreign Military Sales, the FMS program, Cameroon and Kenya will receive 1 Scan Eagle system each by September 2016 through deals worth $9.39 million and $9.86 million respectively, the US Department of Defense announced on the 29th of September. The acquisitions for Cameroon and Kenya will include 50% of the work on each contract being carried out in country and will see the delivery of analog medium wave infrared Scan Eagle UAVs, launch and recovery equipment, ground control stations and in-situ video exploitation systems and the ground support equipment for the governments, says the contract notice. Kenya will additionally acquire 1 Mark IV launcher, 2 full mission training devices and spares kits. The details on Pakistan's $15.2 million order are less clear, with the US DoD simply saying that hardware and technical data will be delivered to the Pakistani government under the FMS program by August 2016. It adds that 90% of the work will be carried out by in the USA and the remaining 10% in the actual country. Additionally, In-Situ has been awarded an $8.7 million contract by the US Naval Air System Command to provide spares for the RQ-21A Blackjack UAV, support marine equipment, unit deployments and squadron readiness training.
I have to say that for those of you guys in the chat room who are following the storm, that Jet 2 aircraft, that 737-300 that's been circling to the north of the island, it's still circling.
Are you joking?
It's still at 12,950 feet. So for those of them, for the guys who are on board that Newcastle to Malta jet that's been circling now for probably nearly half an hour.
Gosh,
off the coast of Malta. It's not been a great start to their holiday.
No, I can imagine.
No, it's still, like I said, it's still circling. If those of you who've got the ability to go on Flight Radar 24, and if you scroll to the island, you'll be able to see the particular aircraft in question, which, like I said, is still circling.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Okay, so on to our final story then, and
shall I take this?
Yeah,
shall I take this one?
Yeah. No, you're definitely on the mend. So we'll give it. We'll risk it, shall we? Off you go.
So for the last story then on the military segment, this one's on Flight Global. And the headline, RAAF KC-30A refuels the F-35A for the first time. So in a first for the Royal Australian Air Force, an Airbus Defence and Space KC-30A multi-role tanker transport aircraft has conducted refuelling contacts with Lockheed Martin F-35A fighter. The 4-hour sortie took place from Edwards Air Force Base in California and saw the KC-30A perform 59 boom contacts, says Australia's Department of Defence in a statement. One of these 5 contacts were wet and included the transfer of £43,000 of fuel to the USAF F-35A. Our KC-30 Alpha is an essential force multiplier, says Air Force Chief A.M. Leo Davies. Mid-air refuelling is critical to ensure global reach for our aircraft and our people and equipment. Refuelling between the KC-30 and the F-35A is an important step towards the KC-30's achievement of final operational capability and represents continued progress in the development of the F-35A. Canberra's KC-30s, a variant of the A330 airliner, are capable of refueling aircraft via a boom or with wing-mounted hose and drogue equipment. Both systems have been used by KC-30 engaged in combat operations against Islamic State militants in Syria and Iraq. Australia operates 5 KC-30As and will receive an additional pair in 2018. By 2023, only 36 RAAF aircraft will still use hose and drogue refueling. It's 24 F-18 Super Hornets and 12 EA-18 Growlers. The remaining 100 aircraft in its fleet, including the Lockheed Martin F-35s, will require boom refueling. In early 2015, Australia moved the KC-30 from its projects of concern list following a redemption work related to the type's aerial refueling boom. The type was on the list since February 2010, owing a number of project delays, and extensive work has been undertaken by Airbus in Spain related to the capability. And there's a nice picture there as well on that website, Matt.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's typical, isn't it? We've got royalty in the chat room, and then the minute they appear, everything all falls apart. But never mind. There we are. It's all part of the fun. So who have we got in the chat room there?
So in the chat room here, Jeff has just disappeared. I think Jeff is just off. He's recording this via audio. Oh, right, okay. He's recording the show now, so he's going to listen back to this when he gets back from his walk.
Oh no!
Yeah, we've still got Matty Fab in the chat room. Mash is still in the chat room. We've got Big Ron. He's in the chat room. Love Big Ron's icon on the chat there with the Vulcan. Dr. Steph, obviously a big hello to Dr. Steph. Big fan of yours on the Airline Pilot Guy show. We've got Neville Bounds, Philip Davis. And just scrolling through the list, don't let miss someone out. Neville, Matty Fab, Jenny Parkinson. Never get Jennifer Parkinson out there in Rome. Hope your weather's better than it is here.
I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to go to Pip's segment. It's only a little short 5-minute one. We should just explain that this was actually sent to us to put out live last week when we had the legend that was Betty in the Sky. And unfortunately, it was such a busy show, we didn't get the chance to include it. So if you listen to last week's show, then what he says at the beginning will make an awful lot more sense to you. So we're just going to do that. We're going to try and get our a link to Malta sorted out during that. So Pilot Pip, take it away.
And now it's time to visit the cockpit and join the man who puts the S in safe. It's the plane safety from the flight deck segment with Captain Pip.
Hey everyone, it's Pip here with just a very short segment today. But rather than preaching at you today, I've got a little story I thought I might tell you. Since we've got a flight attendant on the show, and in honour of flight attendants everywhere, I'll tell you this little story. Now, I wish I could tell you that this happened to me, because it's a great story, but unfortunately, this was someone else. This was told to me by a friend of mine a few years ago. And this is going back a few years, whilst he was a first officer, a new first officer, wet behind the ears, working for a small regional turboprop operator in the UK. I won't say who, because they're still around. but they operate sort of small commuter turboprops, 40 or 50 seats. They do a lot of charter work, just zipping about here and there, picking up work where they can. And the crew is normally 2 pilots and a cabin crew member, maybe 2 cabin crew members, usually just 1. And they're all a very close-knit bunch of people. It's an airline based up north, by the way. So those of you in the UK will know those sort of northern characters that are in this story. And this is one day, there's a senior captain, he's been around a while, typical sort of Yorkshireman, you can imagine him, balding, flat cap, nothing seems to bother him. And my friend, the new first officer. Also on board is a flight attendant. Again, a girl, she's been around for quite a few years. She's seen pretty much everything there is to see in the aviation scene. Well, almost everything anyway. But, she's a good lass, another typical northern girl. Nothing bothers her. So anyway, one day they're doing a charter job. They're having to go out to Rotterdam to pick up a bunch of people. So they're flying the aircraft out there empty. So they're chugging away, just taking off up into the cruise over the North Sea. And the captain, the old boy, is thinking to himself, he thinks, right, let's have a little bit of fun on this flight. So he turns to the first officer and he says, hey lads, are you up for a bit of a laugh? And the first officer says, well, yeah, what do you got in mind? And he says, our Carol down the back, for it was her name, Carol, the flight attendant. And he says, our Carol down the back reckons nothing bothers her. Shall we put that to the test? And first officer, wet behind the ears, says, yeah, nervously, what do you got in mind? And the captain explains his plan. First officer, after some hesitation, nervously agrees. So whilst Carol, the flight attendant's down the back getting the cabin ready for the passengers on the next flight, the 2 guys up front, they put their little scheme into motion. Takes them a few minutes, and when they're ready, captain presses the call bell, and Carol, the flight attendant, comes up. And captain says to her, you're right, Carol, would you mind getting us a cup of tea, love? But the sight that greets Carol is not her 2 normal, smartly dressed pilots. Instead, what she's got is 2 completely and utterly naked 2 pilots. They have, in fact, removed all their clothes, save for just their uniform tie and shoes, both sitting there entirely in the buff, as we like to say. And captain's there with a big grin on his face, thinks, I've got her now. This'll embarrass her. But our hero, Carol, the flight attendant, as cool as a cucumber, she eyes the 2 gentlemen up and down, and she says, aye, certainly, I'll get you a cup of tea. She doesn't bat an eyelid. Off she goes to make the cup of tea, and captain's chuckling to himself, thinking, she hasn't seen that before. But not to be outdone, Carol, the flight attendant, the hero of our story, comes back a few minutes later, 2 cups of tea in hand, and she says, here you go, gentlemen, here's your cup of tea. And they both turn round, and their jaws drop as they find their Carol, the lovely flight attendant, is also now entirely naked, except for her little necktie. And once the captain has finished admiring the lovely Carol's figure, for Carol is a very attractive woman, as they're both now fully realising, and the first officer eventually picks up his jaw off the floor, and they take their cup of tea. Thanks, love. And Carol takes the jump seat and sits down, and all 3 of them sit there quite happily for the rest of the flight, don't say another word to each other, and enjoy their cup of tea and remain totally naked as the day they were born until they pull up on stand in Rotterdam. And of course, what the ground staff said when they came on board the aircraft at Rotterdam, well, that's another story. Like I say, I wish I could tell you that was me, but quite literally, I don't think I would have had the balls to do that. So, back to you guys in the studio, who I hope are still fully clothed. And I'll see you all again next time. Take care, everyone.
Still fully clothed? I can't think of anything worse.
I'm still in my beach clothes.
Yeah. I should just bear in mind I have now fixed the feed, so you can't say that because everybody once again can now see you. So
hello.
Absolutely. Sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. As I say, but as Carl was describing, obviously with this plane that is, I believe, still circling. Is that correct?
Yeah. Just saying to Matt earlier, the Jet 2. 737-300 from Newcastle to Malta. He's descended now to, well, he had descended to 7,000 feet, but he's now climbing now at Oh, he's no descending again. So he's
right.
He's just descending. He's actually moving down towards the southern end of the island. So I'm hoping that these guys have been given clearance to land in what has been quite a nasty storm, which is actually still over the island at the moment.
Absolutely, as I say, but at least it's not playing havoc with our satellite link between humble England and where you are. But no, it's as you say, you really got a feel for those people in that plane, haven't you?
Yeah, they've just flown from Newcastle to Malta, which is probably best part of a 3 hours 40 minutes flight from Newcastle to here.
Yeah.
And they've just been circling now for what must be 3/4 of an hour.
Watching an amazing storm, essentially.
yeah, it's been a good storm. But Neville Bounds has put bordering on the scouse. What's with Pip's dodgy Yorkshire accent?
Oh, that's really not fair. Yeah, as I say, that should have gone out yesterday, but in all the chaos of a very muddled show last week, unfortunately it didn't go out. But it was such a good story; it was worth putting out. We thought so. So yeah, thanks Pip as always.
Yeah, thanks for that, Pip, as always. Fantastic segment. And we'll hopefully have another segment from Pip on next week's show.
Absolutely. So, anything else from the chat room then before we bring the show to a close?
No, they're all busy chatting to themselves in the chat room. I have to say, I think we're going to have Dr. Steph on the show.
Oh, definitely.
I think we should have Dr. Steph on the show.
Yeah.
Give her input into our UK show here.
Oh yes, please, that would be great. Yeah, well, maybe what we could do, because the system that they use, maybe we could get them to all join up, and then
That's
join
what
up
she
with
said.
What? Is that beer starting to have an effect on your brain or something?
No.
Carry on. Whatever. So what we'll have to do is we'll have to grovel very nicely to the American guys there and see if we can do a mass show link up, because I've got it all. I've got the tech all worked out here, so we should be able to do that if necessary. But so that really is sadly where we have to bring episode 80 to a close.
Of the Plain Talking UK podcast.
We've had a couple of technical glitches.
We have.
I don't mind admitting it. As I say, the most of them I will edit out, obviously. But unfortunately, with the link going down a bit there in Malta, there's not really a lot I can do about that. But it has really, given how far away you are, and that it really has behaved quite well. There's no two ways about it.
Jeff's in the Jeff's actually watching the show whilst he's walking.
Wow!
So Captain Jeff is watching the show on his phone whilst walking, which is quite good.
How cool is
that?
And
he's also accusing us of trying to steal Dr. Steph for our show.
No. We'd never ever do that. I speak for myself personally. I really want to speak to the legend that is Captain Jeff. It has to be said. Why haven't you been on the show already? I know you were on before I joined, but it's and
we'll get Jeff on. We'll get Jeff
and
on.
I do absolutely love his show. I'm always tuned in when it's when he's doing a live one. They're a great team over there, and if you haven't watched it, then where have you been?
Dr. Steph has said she'll be honoured to join us on the show.
Oh, she's such a charmer. She's nearly as charming as you, Carl. Never mind. Okay, so I think that's enough of the madness. Stick around by all means for a little while in the chat room, but that's where we're going to bring episode number 80 to a close. Hope you've enjoyed the shows. I know, number 80. What are we doing
next week, Matt? What are we doing next week?
Next week there will be no YouTube, I'm afraid, because Carl thinks that's a little bit outside of his technical remit. But hopefully, because I shall be in the lovely island of Menorca next week, so I'm hoping that I will be joining you via Skype. Let's hope it behaves itself. I shall be joining you in your kitchen studio, I think, next week.
Yes.
From the island of Menorca. So fingers crossed that side of things all behaves itself.
I'm just going to have to say, Matt, a massive thanks to everyone who's joined us in the chat room tonight.
Yeah.
And thanks ever so much, guys, for joining us. Especially those guys over in the US, who obviously the time difference is quite big.
Yeah.
Jeff and obviously Dr. Steph over there. Thanks for joining us. And everyone else in the chat room. Philip Davis, Tony, who's just joined us. Actually, Tony's just joined us in the chat room. He's a bit late. And Big Ron, Matty, Fab, Jenny, everyone in the chat room. There's been loads of you in the chat room tonight, so thanks for joining us on the show. And don't forget to check out as well our Facebook page for the photos that I've taken at the Malta International Air Show, and also the photos that I took this morning at the Aviation Museum here at Takali as well. And we've got loads of interviews from the air show to come in coming episodes. And also the interview that I took. Oh, sorry, it's my phone going off.
Oh, how rude.
And also the interview that I took this morning at the Aviation Museum, which is 2 hours long.
Oh, great. That's going to be a little bit of homework for me then. To get in touch with the show, it is www.planetalkinguk.com. On Facebook, it's facebook.com/planetalkinguk. And our Twitter handle, it is @planetalkinguk. Thank you very much for joining me, Carlos, whilst you're on holidays. Very good of you. Well done to the technology for sort of sorting itself out there for most of the show, at least anyway. From as I say, from here in England, it is goodbye. Stick around if you are in the chat room. We're not going anywhere for a minute, as I say, but this is where episode number 80 comes officially to a close. But we are going to hang around in the chat room for at least another quarter an hour or so. So do make sure you'll still be able to hear us and stuff. But that's it. So from here in sunny Beccles, or it was today until it went dark, from sunny Beccles, it's goodbye. And from you, Carlos, in Malta.
So from me in Malta, in rainy Malta, it's cheers and good night.
Absolutely. Goodbye, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye.